And let me share my screen. Good morning again, and welcome back. I hope all of you have taken my messages pretty seriously. So and I also hope that all of you have got the graph paper that I shared. You are going to need it. Right. So there we go. Let's start. So good morning again. We finished the previous day's class. We had a couple of important discussions, but today's class is going to be far more important. We finished the previous day's class at this point. We started to, I keep on forgetting this equation, so let's keep it written. Today is 24th Jan. So what are the things we know now? We actually now know very well the phase diagram of two miscible liquids around the temperature where it exceeds the boiling temperature of both, right? Of course, that's not going to be of great use to us in extraction because there is no thermal effect. There, the two liquids we considered were completely miscible. In extraction, we have such liquids which are completely miscible, but we also have another set of liquid which are totally or partially immiscible. Oil water is a very good example of almost complete immiscibility, but there can be other systems which are partially miscible, right? So we need to now look into the phase diagram of partially miscible liquids. So what exactly it means? So we started talking about, let's say, okay, let me just have a quick slide over here. And let's say that I would like to have a phase diagram of two completely miscible liquids much below their boiling point. So two liquids completely miscible. So one phase, so C equal to 2, F is equal, P is equal to 1. So what you get, degree of freedom is equal to 3. And typically, we can plot such a phase diagram only at constant pressure or constant temperature. Let's say pressure is constant. So that eats up one of the degrees of freedom. And now let's say here is the composition versus temperature diagram. And can anybody suggest how the phase diagram will look like for two completely miscible liquids way below their boiling point? So I don't want to waste time on this one. This is the phase diagram. Are you all satisfied with it? Why? Because any point over here is a valid point. So at every temperature, it is possible to have any liquid composition. So that satisfies 2 degrees of freedom. So any system you would like to define, you need to define, in order to fully define the system, you need to define the composition as well as the temperature. So everybody understands that if somebody asks you such a apparently ridiculous question, that what is the phase diagram of two completely miscible liquids, you'll be happy to give this answer, right? Only if you are looking at, so essentially now for the same phase diagram, if you go much above, you will encounter this, right? So please need to understand, or we need to understand that essentially for extraction, we need to concentrate on this part of the phase diagram. And for distillation, we need to concentrate this part of the phase diagram. This is clear to everyone? In fact, distillation is favored at higher temperature, extraction is favored at lower temperature. Why it is favored at lower temperature? We will come to that. But this is clear. So this is essentially part of the same phase diagram. In extraction, you essentially would like to remain deep within the liquid regime. And therefore, if you check out this part, you just have this as a valid phase diagram for two miscible liquids. Clear to everyone? Now we move on to two immiscible liquids, right? So two immiscible liquids. The previous discussion is clear to everyone? Apparently silly discussion, but it's not that silly after all. This division actually is very, very important. It's essentially the same phase diagram, right? But for extraction, you are looking into this part of the phase diagram. And for distillation, you are looking into this part of the phase diagram. Clear to everyone? Okay. Now let us look into the phase diagram of two immiscible or nearly immiscible liquids. First, we are going to focus on two immiscible liquids. Again, here, so if you look at if you do an analysis of your Gibbs phase rule, so your component is 2. Component is 2, or okay, I can do that. What is the number of phases? 2 immiscible liquids. So what is the number of phases? Both are liquid. What is the number of phase? Rishi Aravar, are you there? Adrija, good, 2. Number of phases is 2. Oil and water you think of, both are liquid, but they are 2 different phases. So what is your degrees of freedom? In fact, this probably I should not have triggered right now. Degree of freedom is 2. It's not 3 anymore. So this everybody can take note of, that here the degree of freedom is 2. Okay, and now you are drawing this plot at P equal to constant, right? So now let us see what it means. So here we took an example of a mixture, let's say oil and water, where one of the compositions, let's say the oil fraction is 0.45, and you mathematically measure like 0.445% and 55% of one of the let's say liquid and oil and 55% of water, and you mix it, and what is going to happen? You are going to get 2 phases. They can be dispersed or they can be stratified. That's a different question we talked altogether in the previous class. But if they're completely immiscible, theoretically, we will have 2 pure phases, A and B, right? So what is this point? This is very, very important. What is this point? This point is mathematically you represent the overall mixture composition. Mathematically, you represent the overall mixture composition. But once you sort of mix them, shake them, centrifuge it, disperse it, or whatever you do, and let the system equilibrate, what is going to happen? it is going to phase separate because the two liquids are completely immiscible. It's going to phase separate into the two pure components. So what we get is that one of the phases will have composition given here. The other phase will have a composition given here. Is this clear to all? So here are the 2 points where the system which are physically realized. So these points are physically realized. This is 1 point. Sorry, this represents to pure A, which we just talked in the previous class. And this represents pure B. So please note, this point does not exist physically. Is this clear to everyone? This point physically does not exist. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear to everyone? And what you get is actually a system which is given by these 2 points, right? Now, these 2 phases are in equilibrium with each other. Yes or no? These 2 phases are in equilibrium with each other. Right? So this composition and this composition are in equilibrium with each other. Therefore, this particular line, in our case, the x-axis, or which is essentially a line at any constant temperature, is essentially a tie line. Is it clear to all? So this line is a tie line. Is it clear to everyone? Because the 2 extremities or the compositions given by the 2 edges. Abhishek Purohit, is it clear? Aditya Agarwal, is it clear? Akshay Agarwal, Aman Kedia, Anik Mondol, Chavi, Chinmay, Jyotiraditya, Aryan. You need to come out of your shells and start behaving the way you used to behave during Bhavna. Is it clear? Naman, is it clear? Nidhi, is it clear? Padamshri, is it clear? Palak, is it clear? You need to come out of this and behave like the way. Samira, is it clear? Sahil, Saksham, Chayan Maiti, Shivam Raj, Shivans Raj, Shoaib Nazir, Rishi, Tridipta. So just come out of your shells. I want the class to be back in the CPC mode. Okay, so this we understand. Should be clear, but something very interesting is coming up. Now, let us talk about a more realistic system. What I mean by more realistic system, in many cases, it is not going to be oil water, but in many cases, you are going to have a liquid pair, and that is something we are going to use in extraction very, very frequently, which are nearly immiscible. So now from complete immiscibility, we are now looking at a system that is nearly immiscible, or let us use a more valid pedagogy, partially immiscible. Partially miscible system. So what does it mean, this partially miscible system? Partially miscible system means, I have deliberately not answered one question. Nobody has picked it up, which is good. Partially miscible system means that for a large range of concentration, they are immiscible, but maybe when you have an extremely high concentration of A, right, extremely high concentration of A, then it forms a homogeneous mixture. On the other hand, if you might also have an extremely concentrated solution of B, there the A might dissolve. So here is what partial miscibility means. It means when concentration of A is very high, B dissolves in it. So it forms a homogeneous solution. And on the other hand, if concentration of B is very high, forms a homogeneous solution. And let's say these are the 2 points which are at this particular temperature, whatever be that temperature. These are the 2 points. So here we have a system where B is very, very high, concentration of B is very, very high. And from B equal to, or A equal to 0 to A equal to whatever value here, it is, you get a homogeneous solution. And on the other hand, here this is 100%. So this range where the concentration of A is very, very high, you again get a homogeneous solution, right? So any intermediate composition, the system is immiscible. And now, unlike the previous case, where it would have split up into pure A and pure B, here the system splits up into these 2 compositions, right? Here, this is an important point. Please see if you are understanding it. You don't have to say yes, sir, to satisfy me. Ask yourself, yes, sir, or yes, madam, whether you are understanding it fully. Is this clear to everyone? So again, like our previous consideration, right? This point actually is more of a mathematical point. It does not exist physically, right? It physically does not exist, right? It splits up into these 2 compositions. One is a B-rich liquid and one is an A-rich liquid. Please don't get carried away under any circumstances that B-rich has to be on the top, A-rich has to be on the bottom, or there is also no guarantee that there will be stratified layer, right? There is absolutely no guarantee. It can be a dispersion also. So we studied in the previous class under what conditions stratified layer will form if the interfacial tensions are high and you have a significant density difference. But what can be said is that since this liquid pair is partially miscible, it's going to split up into an A-rich phase and a B-rich phase. Is this clear to all? Is this clear to everyone? So any composition you take in between, it's going to split up into the A-rich phase and the B-rich phase. Now, I would like to point out something very interesting, and I must thank one of your friends for asking a beautiful question after previous day's class, which actually has let me think in this particular line. As far as degrees of freedom is concerned, would you guys kindly, just a second, please, kindly take a look at a system in this range or these ranges and a system in this range. What is the degree of freedom? It turns out that if you are following me clearly, that within these 2 yellow highlighted zones, the degree of freedom is 3. Why? Number of phase is equal to 1, component is equal to 2. In contrast, in this zone of immiscibility, the degree of freedom is equal to 2, as we have phase equal to 2 and component is equal to 2. Is it clear to everyone? Sohan, you are the last one to respond. Is it clear? Pooja, is it clear? Shivam, is it clear? Shoumik, is it clear? Sneh, is it clear? Adrija, is it clear? So what does it mean? Can anybody explain? This is a little offbeat discussion. You won't get this discussion anywhere. So Sneh, what does it mean? Or for that matter, anyone? Both the rishis. So everybody understands, right, that these two ranges, there is a fundamental difference in terms of degree of freedom. Degree of freedom is 3 for this range. And please understand that this plot you are making is at p equal to constant. So now you are available, p equal to constant means one of the degrees of freedom is gone. So now you are available with 2 degrees of freedom. So what does it mean for this range? That means that in this range where the system is fully miscible, you can independently define the temperature and the composition. You can define a temperature. So it is possible even at this particular temperature to have 2 different compositions. Let's say we have a C1, C2, we can have a C3 also. Is it clear? So for any of these C1 and C2, you will understand the degree of freedom is 3. Why? Because you have defined the pressure, you have defined the temperature. Let's say this particular line corresponds to T equal to T1, right? And you now have independently, you can define the composition. So the degrees of freedom is 3 for all these cases. Is it clear to all? Should be clear to all. Now, what about this section, this part, this immiscible part? Here, let's say we take this point, P1. We take this point, P2, or these 3 initial compositions, which are mathematically given by P1, P2, P3. And here, the degree of freedom turns out to be 2. Can anybody tell what does it mean? What does it actually mean to have 1 less degree of freedom? Adrija? We cannot just fix any composition. Tridipta, very good. No, Adrija, temperature is constant at T1. Both liquid are independent, so there is no composition, not understood. Composition is fixed. Anik, a little bit deeper insight would have been better. Tridipta, can you just explain what you would like to say? Adrija, you rethinking, assuming that temperature is constant, because we are drawing it on the line, T1 is equal to constant. Only 2 fixed composition are defined. Aman Kedia, very good answer, but defined is not the correct point. What it means is that P1, P2, P3, whatever initial composition you take within this zone of insolubility, whole class listen to me very carefully. P1, P2, P3, whatever composition you take for this zone of insolubility, you are going to get, right? You are going to get, I don't have really space. So whatever initial composition we take, finally, we are going to get two phases, right? 2 phases. Sorry, just give me a minute, please. Not that I taught anything wrong. It's just a logistic problem. I just need to write it well. I really miss the blackboards of Nalanda. Agreeing to the fact that the class now understands this is the zone of immiscibility. So within this zone, whatever initial composition we take, we are going to get two phases with fixed composition. So as somebody said, no composition independent, then no composition is not a very good answer. We cannot just fix any composition. That sort of is the sense that whatever initial composition we take, like we can define an XA based on some mathematical number, 0.37, 0.45, 0.5, whatever. But once the system attains equilibrium, we are going to get two phases with fixed composition. Is it clear to all? And that is exactly what is meant by degrees of freedom is 2. So at a constant pressure, at a particular temperature, if you are looking at a system which has two phases, the moment you say that you are looking at a system that has two phases, you are essentially looking at the green part of this line. Is this clear to all? I have to define in my phase rule what is the number of phase. So the moment you are saying that you are now, okay, now we are looking at a system which has two phases. That means that you are looking at the immiscible part of the phase diagram, right? And once you are looking at the immiscible part of the phase diagram, you can take whatever initial composition, but you cannot create a liquid with that particular composition. You are going to get two phases as you have opted, or you are looking into that region, and the two phases will have fixed composition. Is it clear to everyone? Of course, the phase diagram does not talk about the amount of these two phases, which will depend on the numerical value of XA. Is it clear to everyone? And I want this concept to be crystal clear. Of course, yes, Anik Mondal. Of course, yes. Because again, the two phases for the whole range, right? The system says it's completely immiscible. So whatever composition you take, you have to say that the number of phases is two extreme points at the boundary of the immiscible liquid. Yes, Odrija, perfect. So let us identify these points with, let's say, these are let's say B1 and B2. Yes, the two phases, two fixed composition, are the compositions corresponding to point B1 and B2. What Odrija has asked. Anik, is your question clear? This is perfectly valid for miscible as well as immiscible liquid. Miscible is a special case of immiscible, completely immiscible. Anik Mondal, is it clear? Your question is, you are clear now? Just that I have marked the points as B1 and B2. So in case of the two liquids are completely immiscible, you can understand that B1 is going to be at XA is equal to 0 and B2 is going to be at X2 is equal to 0. Is this clear? Rest of the class, I am not teaching to 7 people. Is it clear to all? Okay. Now, let us look into another important aspect. What happens? So if you look at the phase diagram, it's a TX diagram. So the y-axis is temperature, right? the x-axis is composition. Let me just tell you that in extraction, we will be performing it at isothermal conditions. There will be no variation of temperature, but still we need to have another quick discussion to get another concept clear. And just like every other class, I must tell that CPC was a very elementary course, and those sort of, according to the collective feedback of your batch seemed to be quite satisfied with me or my teaching or whatever. Honestly speaking, I did not teach anything because that's one of the most boring courses, most elementary courses, I would say. And maybe it was a good revision for what you have already done in your 12th or maybe first year physical chemistry or thermodynamics or whatever. But here, mass transfer is a completely different ballgame. Here you have a lot of very, very interesting concepts, and therefore it is extremely important that you get your concepts correctly. Solving some problems is one part of the whole process. That is not everything. And this online classes and everything, we must best utilize our time in developing the concepts. Just give me a minute, please. So here it is. So when I now draw this diagram, neat and clean, just these 2 points are marked on this line. This class is now a knowledgeable class. So now this class understands, okay, so there are these 2 points. It must be a system that is partially miscible, right? And these 2 points essentially limit or identify the 2 extreme values of the compositions which the system will coexist, or one is a B-rich phase, one is an A-rich phase that will coexist at this particular temperature, T1. Okay, this is clear. Now, if you have a graph like this, what would be the conclusion? Sneh, what would be the conclusion? Sahil, what will be the conclusion? Shoham, what will be the conclusion? Mausham, are you there? What will be the conclusion? Shravan, you actually, this was a trap I led and you fell into that. This is either completely miscible or completely immiscible. Yeah, so see, Shravan and Shomi, one said completely miscible, one said completely immiscible. Turn on your thinking cap, thinking switch. This graph will be, if you just have this thing, right? It will either be completely miscible or completely immiscible. Clear to everyone? I won't explain anything more. Okay, now let us look into this system. What happens to the immiscibility when temperature is increased? Though not a proper example, why it is not a proper example, that should I should also tell, because when you would like to make a cup of tea or coffee, you typically, or even a glass of sweet water, by adding some sugar, you typically would mix it at an elevated temperature. You would like to mix coffee and sugar at a higher temperature. This you all know. This is not exactly related to this what we are discussing, right? But it is very similar. So anybody can say now that I would like to have the opinion of the class on what happens to the immiscibility of the 2 liquids when the temperature is increased. Rishi Yaravar? Siddhant, Tridipta, Bhavna, Saivardhan, Samira, Shayan Maiti. Decreases. Very good. Patrija and Aman. Others? Shoham decreases. Yes. So the general perception is for most liquids, it would decrease. So how, let's say now instead of T1, if you are looking at a slightly higher temperature, what is likely? It is likely that the range of immiscibility sort of reduces. Range of immiscibility sort of reduces. So immiscibility decreases means that the range of immiscibility sort of reduces. Or at an elevated temperature, even for a slightly lower concentration of B, you are going to have a miscible liquid, or lower concentration of A, you are going to have a miscible liquid. And this reduction is not symmetric. There is absolutely no need. Even this XA might be 0.1 over here and it can be 0.85 over here. So there is absolutely no symmetry. Completely depends on the system. And you are likely to get a graph like this. Right? And these lines are important. These you have experimentally obtained. Right? So this is the immiscible region. And now you essentially have a system. This system above TC, right, becomes fully miscible. It happens. It happens if you read Trebel. There are examples with chemicals that exhibits this type of. Firstly, Shankar, your question is wrong. Will the immiscibility range always tend to 0? No, the immiscibility range gradually reduces, right? And for this type of a system, so yes, eventually the immiscible range will be 0 at some critical temperature. Again, now today the class is active and participating, so you have essentially started to ask questions, which are very good questions, but you have not given me the time to finish the topic. So just hold on. This is a very common system. What I'm telling is, this is a very common system. So what you are asking, Shankar, is an exception to this. Yes, exception exists, and just wait. But this is a very common system where if at a particular temperature, the system is immiscible, right? Partially immiscible, and you generally increase the temperature, the immiscibility envelope reduces, right? And above a critical temperature, the system becomes fully miscible. So we have already identified the critical temperature. Just allow me to teach for about 3-4 minutes, then I will take any questions. So this is the critical temperature. And how do we define this critical temperature? We define this critical temperature, if you have carefully noted me, observed me drawing the graph. See, here we had 2 points, here we had 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. And at the critical temperature, we actually had just 1 point. So what does it mean? The critical temperature is that temperature where the composition of the A-rich phase, no, there is no symmetry, Rishi Suvada. I told there is absolutely no reason for any symmetry. Please do not miss out and please ask any other questions. The tie lines will always be horizontal here. Tie lines will be horizontal. There is no reason for it to bend. Tie lines will not bend. Why? You should answer, not me. Because you are doing the experiment at a particular temperature, right? And if you consider the liquids to be ideal liquids, there is no heat of mixing effect, right? Then the temperature won't change. Temperature will remain constant, and a horizontal line will indicate a particular constant temperature. So you are going to get these two phases in equilibrium, but they are at a constant temperature. Is it clear to all? And what Rishi was asking, whether it will shift to left, shift to right, anything is possible. I clearly told that there is no reason for the graph to be symmetric. So you can have this type of a graph. You can have this type of a graph if you want to check my drawing skills right in the morning, something like that. No negative slope, of course, so probably it's something a little more complicated. So anything is possible, right? And now the class will ask, so here it is, one is miscible, one is partially miscible, one is completely miscible, even that is possible. Rishi, are you clear? Rishi, clear? Shankar, hold on to your question. So what is the critical temperature? Can anybody tell me? What is TC? So symmetry, there is no symmetry. I am a great painter, see, great freehand painter with this tab. So I have drawn it symmetrically without anything, but there is no symmetry. So TC is that temperature at which, can anybody define the composition of A rich phase becomes equal to that of B rich phase. Is that clear? And above this, it becomes completely miscible. And here is the immiscibility envelope. Clear? Can anybody tell me what is this type of a system called? Sneh, can you tell me what is this type of a system called? Samira? Anybody? The hint is all given there. No one? This is what is called a UCST system. Anybody knows what is UCST means? Pooja? Shayon Maiti? "69 people today." I will do a cross check of who are the people present. Achal, are you there? Aditya Agarwal? Aditya Chawla? Vivek Shukla? Yash Jain? Varun Balakrishna? Yeah, Varun, you are unusually silent. Uday Mishra? Anuradha? Tanmay Vagle? If you do not know the answer, please write, I do not know. Because when I am calling and you are not responding, I have every right to assume that you are sleeping. Sharup Mondal? Subda Prasad? Shubhajit Bagh? Shomik? Shomik has given answers, of course. Somil? Siddhant? Shraman? Shoaib? Shoaib, I have been calling you for a while. Shivoy? Okay. Surprised that you do not know. Yes, on internet it says UCST means upper critical solution temperature. And is it clear why it is called upper critical solution temperature? And say I really liked your answer. You did not want to play smart that I know it type. Yeah, so you are doing an online class. It has its own advantage that you can consult Wikipedia at any point of time. And I really appreciate your honesty. I really don't know how honest you are, but today I really appreciate your honesty. Upper critical solution temperature. And I think the name is self-explanatory to the class now because the class understands, right? So you have a critical temperature above which the system becomes fully miscible. Below that critical temperature, the system becomes partially miscible. Lower is the temperature, the immiscibility envelope increases. Clear? Is it clear to everyone? You should understand it. Now is it clear to everyone? People who are saying we do not know, it's perfectly well taken. Now you understand? So this is the typical behavior in most cases. Most cases, if you have two partially miscible liquids, if you increase their temperature, the immiscibility envelope reduces and they become more miscible. We all know that in most cases. So why I was giving this example of sugar, mixing of sugar at high temperature and all, or if you want to make instant coffee, you have to increase the temperature. If you just take glass water and put some coffee and try to mix it, it will not mix, right? This we all know. So, but if you increase the temperature, it mixes nicely. So that why that is not a perfectly valid example, because you are mixing a liquid. You are mixing a solid. Coffee is a solid. So that's why it's not a perfect example. You can try to do one quick experiment. You can try to mix some honey in water. And you will find at room temperature, you will find great difficulty in mixing honey in water. But if you mix it at a higher temperature, it mixes. That is also not a perfect example because honey and water are miscible. They are not immiscible. So what you are doing is by increasing the temperature, you are just enhancing the solubility, right? So it mixes fast. But now if you cool down, it remains as a solution. Okay, so we may not be able to always pick up practical examples to explain everything, but this is what it happens. Coming back to Shankar, I think was asking, is it a universal behavior? Well, there are systems which behaves exactly the ulta. So you can have these type of systems where this is possible. This is TC. Forgive me for not drawing it very nicely. And as you increase the temperature, I don't know what spelling I'm writing. The system becomes immiscible. This type of system exists, not maybe with regular liquids or whatever, but these type of systems do exist in certain polymeric material and whatever. So what do you see here? That the system is miscible at lower temperature. And if you go for a higher temperature, the system becomes immiscible. And can the class tell me what this system will be called? Very easy. This system is called an LCST system. Lower critical solution temperature. Very good. Shankar, are you happy now? Very rare. One can theoretically have a conjecture that whether this is possible or not. So what is this? Adrija, what is this? What have I drawn? Sahil, what have I drawn? Or what type of system are we looking at? Varun? Let me tell you, it's a theoretical conjecture. Constant composition. Or Adrija, you can be a little bit more specific. Solubility, or I would say relative solubility, does not change. Shankar, I mean, why are you asking all sorts of strange questions to me? And now, since you are asking repeatedly, it can be from academic interest, but at times, you know that instead of following what I am teaching, if you continuously keep on asking strange questions, you are not going to get the Nobel Prize based on asking me these questions. Because had this question yielded Nobel Prize, I would have got it without sharing it. Second question is, the question is wrong. One component cannot have a lower boiling behavior, because what you are talking about is a solution property. And solution property is a pair property, right? It is not possible that one system, right, changes its boiling point with temperature, miscibility with temperature. It doesn't. What you are seeing here is a collective property, right? So this immiscibility, one phase cannot be immiscible with itself, right? Is it clear, Shankar? Is it clear? One phase cannot be immiscible. So the question of immiscibility arises only when you try to make a mixture. I cannot have an LCST behavior or an UCST behavior of water. But when I mix water with, let's say, some other liquid, then the question of LCST or UCST might be possible. Is it clear? Okay. Theoretically, we can have any type of system. We can also have a system which initially shows LCST, then at a higher temperature it shows UCST. It is good to think about all this, but you need to know real good chemistry if you want to come up with evidence of such systems. Is it clear to you? It's a good question, but you need to understand, you got a little carried away. I'm sure you are enjoying the discussion. That's why all these very, very clever questions are coming up. But a system on its own does not show miscibility. A pure component does not show miscibility. Miscibility is shown only in presence of another liquid, when the question of mixing comes, right? And therefore, when you have two components, they will either form an LCST system. That's what mankind knows. They will either form an LCST system or it will form an UCST system. Is it clear? We are already talking about a theoretical conjecture here. I can draw another graph to demonstrate another theoretical conjecture, but there is no point in discussing all those because those are not realizable. Clear, Shankar, why your question is wrong? Because one component, pure component, will not show any behavior. So theoretical conjecture of this particular plot is relative solubility does not change with temperature. And see what I have marked straight away. Theoretical conjecture, because this does not happen. Clear to everyone? So everybody understands that mixing behavior of two partially miscible liquids, and everybody understands what is LCST and UCST. Yes, Adrija, perfect. The critical temperature varies as a function of pressure, of course. I mean, there is a unique critical point, what you have written in very nice English, in simple terms, of course. The critical temperature, either for LCST or UCST, is a function of pressure. Yes. Anything else? I never realized that we have crossed 1 hour. So it's coffee time for me. And it's a good time because now we can start the physics of extraction properly. Anybody, anything else? Whatever we discussed from the morning, we wasted 1 hour, I would say. Is it clear to everyone? Sai Vardhan, Shivam Raj, Palak, Aditya Jha, Bhagavati, Jay, you joined a little late, I guess. That's okay. Chavi is there or she has left? Okay. Girija Karthik, Bhavna, Mayank Paswan, Muskan, Naman Jajani, Nidhi, Padamsi, you are not responding. I called you before also. Pranit, Pratik Kumar, Rahul Kumawat. Rahul, you joined you were one of the earliest ones to join. Saksham Arya, Shankar, Shayan Haldar, you also probably joined a little late. Shoaib Nazir, Shoham, you suddenly became silent. Sugada, Swarup, Anuradha, Uday. Clear with everyone, whatever we studied from the morning? So I'll take a 5-minute break and then I'll come back and start teaching you. If you want to take any break, you can also take it now. Okay, just give me a minute, please. I need that graph that I shared with all of you. Yeah. So let's start again. And this is where your probably, I would say, the most important concept of extraction comes in. Still, despite my repeated requests, many of your friends have not joined. Kindly convey to them Professor RM is extremely disappointed. I don't want to take actions like not recording and stuff like that, because I fully understand that situation is very difficult. Though some of you are here on campus, some are still at home. Internet connectivity is always an issue anywhere in India. So I don't want to make things compulsory, like you have to turn on the camera, this, that. But if this class behaves like this, just on the pretext that it's a winter morning and I cannot get up, next Monday, I am also going to have a very nice sleep and waking up at 9 o'clock and join at 9:10. That's as simple as that. Or in other words, I won't teach. So convey it to your friends in whichever channel you have. I don't even want to be harsh with your batch, because I have been teaching you from second year. First batch to teach in online, I created this WhatsApp group, etc., etc. We have had wonderful relations, right? So whoever has come on campus and people have personally come to meet me. So I enjoy all those interactions, but more people should attend. I mean, you complain that, sir, you are teaching bad, we are not understanding anything, therefore we are missing the class, I will accept that. But if that complaint is not there and still you are missing classes, I'm sorry, I am not liking this at all. Okay, so yeah, again, see, I have forgotten p plus f minus c equal to 2. P plus f minus c is equal to. So what did we learn so far? We learned essentially temperature dependence of liquid solubility, and we also learned about there can be two types of systems, like completely miscible and partially miscible. Okay, now if we go back to extraction, so here is the feed. I am wrong. B is the solvent. And here you have the raffinate. And here you have the extract, right? So here the mole fraction of C is XR. Here the mole fraction is YE. Typically, the mole fraction in the solvent, mole fraction of C in the solvent is YS, and under normal circumstances, it is 0, because there is no reason, if you are using, at least to start with, we can always say we are using a pure solvent. There should not be any C, and this is the feed. Actually, this is the feed stream. So the mole fraction of C in the feed is XC. So this everybody understands that we have the raffinate and the extract. And we actually have, if you now look into these two, these are very important. Why? Because we have both the sets. So A and C are completely miscible. A and B completely miscible. No, sorry. B and C are completely miscible. Something. A and B are completely miscible. A and C and B and C and A and B partially miscible. So you see, C is initially with A. Let's try to refresh our memories. C is the solute. Initially with A, and you are using B to extract C out of A, right? And B and C, so this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. B and C should be, sorry, B and A. Just give me a minute or so, give yourself 5 minutes, should be immiscible as much as possible. Okay, I hope you understand it partly. What we are going to do, you will understand it fully. Now I would like you to do a degree of freedom analysis for such a system. So you have C is equal to 3 here. What is going to be the number of phases? Okay, let us simplify the discussion for the time being. Suppose, listen to me very carefully. B plus X minus C. We have 3 miscible liquids. So you mix these 3 liquids, it forms a homogeneous solution. At a temperature. Now would the class do a degree of freedom analysis? Is the question clear to everyone? Snake, get your algebra correct. We have 3 miscible liquids. Others, perfect, Odrija. Show me, Sahil. Snake, I don't know how you got that. It's going to be 4. F is equal to 4. Why? C is equal to 3. It's miscible. Therefore, P is equal to 1. If you plug it in, you are going to get F is equal to 4. Perfect, all of you. Now comes the question, what are these 4 degrees of freedom? Thanks, Shoham, for showing the calculation. Sneh should thank you, actually. So what are these 4 degrees of freedom? Yes, Odrija, Pooja, Shoham, Rishi, Subhadha. थोड़ा कान साफ करो उसने. So, what are these 4 degrees of freedom? PT and composition of any 2 components. Very good. So, in order to fully define a system, you need to define pressure, you need to define temperature, and maybe XA and XB. Right? Two compositions needs to be independently specified. So if we are drawing now a graph, right, with constant P and constant T, then we need to define two compositions and somehow come up with a formalism that allows us to simultaneously plot the composition that indicates or identify a point that indicates the composition of three components, right? That is the problem. So we now need a formalism that would allow us to have a point that gives XA, XB simultaneously, and so XC. Is this clear to all? Typically, if you use your Cartesian coordinate system, it's tough. It's really tough. Because how will you plot XA and XB? You plot something, okay, then you can always say that from these values you subtract and get a value of XC, but that you cannot locate on the graph. Is it clear? So I can locate a point XA equal to 0.3, XB equal to 0.4. I can locate this point, the total value will be 0.7. You subtract 0.7 from 1, and then indirectly you can say, okay, XC is equal to 0.7. But you cannot plot all the three or physically show all the three compositions together. And this is why we need to learn the so-called triangular plot. So you see, now let's go to this graph and start afresh. So this is actually an equilateral triangle, right? This is an equilateral triangle, and what has been done is that every side has been divided into 10 equal intervals. So every small angle now is triangle is now an equilateral triangle. You could have broken it into 20, 30, 100, whatever. Typically, triangular plots are not available in the market because very few people like us use it. But what it I have constructed this, and this is good enough for our usage. So the way the triangular plot operates is 3 apex corresponds to the 3 pure phases. This is how it operates. I can guarantee it would be good if you kindly open the graph paper that I have shared in the last evening, and it won't take more than 7 or 8 minutes to understand how to plot a point. So A is 100% here, B is 100% here, and C is 100% here. And as you move away from the apex, so this line represents 90% C, this line represents 80% C, this line represents 70% C, this line represents, I will go like a stupid for a while so that everybody understands, though I think the class has already understood what I mean to say. 40% C, 30% C, 20% C, 10% C, and therefore this line would be 0% C, right? And no restriction, you have to only draw for C, nothing like that. So this line, what is this line going to give? Just look into the formalism of C and find out what this line is going to give. This particular line. 90% A, very good, Sahil. Right? And what about this line? 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40. So everybody understands? Yeah, so all of you, Sahil, Varun, Rishi, Tanmay, Samira, Shashank, all of you are right. So please check if this makes sense, that this is 40% A. Everybody understands that this particular line, what I have identified here, is actually the 40% A line. Yes. The line that is highlighted is 40% A. And what about this line? What about this line? Shomik, perfect. Udrija, perfect. Vardhan, perfect. Perfect. All of you have got. Now, let us look into this line. What about this line? Shayan Maiti, you are wrong. Shayan Maiti, you are wrong. Shayan Maiti, this green line is not 30% C. Look at the green line. Look at the green line. It is opposite vertex B. Shayan Maiti, get it. It's opposite vertex B. B corresponds to 100% B. Tridipta, hold on for a minute. Let us finish this 70% B thing. No, Vardhan, Sai Vardhan, no, you are wrong. That line is only 40% B. It is not 60% A line. Sorry. Get your concept corrected. Sai Vardhan, wrong. When I have asked for that blue colored line, it is only 40% B, not 60% A. You are wrong. Because you are now talking about a tertiary system or a ternary system, not a tertiary system, sorry, ternary system. Vardhan, hold on. So is it clear? Shayan Maiti, are you now clear? Who made that mistake? 30% B? Cleared with everyone? So again, a quick cross check now. This green line, right? This green line is 70% B. Everybody understands it, yes or no? Clear to everyone? And the blue line is 40% B. This is clear with everyone? Tridipta got the answer. Girija gave the correct answer. Sai Vardhan, wrong, because he wrote it 40 and 60. That is wrong. Everybody, sorry. Everybody else, is it clear? Soham, 40% B, correct. Tanmay, 40% B, correct. Right. So clear with everyone? Clear with everyone? Now, let me ask you one interesting thing. Let us now try to find out what this point represents. So this point, if you now look carefully, is on 40% B line, right? This is on 40% A line, right? And this is also on 20% C line. So this point P, Shomik, make a habit of writing as ABC. This point P is on, so those of you who have understood Aditya, same thing, make a habit of writing ABC, XA, XB, XC. 40, 40, 20 is the correct answer. But for people, for everyone, if there is anyone who is a fool like I was at your age, please have a look that this point P lies on this particular line, which is 40% A. It also lies on this particular line, which is 40% B. Don't get carried away. That age I have written it 60% C, therefore it is 60% C. That's a mistake I think Saivardhan did, right? So that's a mistake. So this line, so any point over here, actually there will be two markers. One is this marker and one is this marker. And you have to care about the direction. So indeed this is 60% A, but only this line is 60% A, not this line. This line also ends over here, and this line is 40% B. Is it clear? So Saivardhan, are you clear? Vardhan, are you clear now? That's where you went wrong. So if you go carefully, this line lies on, if it is A, this is 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40. This is 40% A. This is B, 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 40% B. And this is C, C90, C80, C70, C60, C50, C40, C30, C20. So almost in the fashion of just playing, we have now identified a point which has a composition of 0.4, 0.4, and 0.2, or you can write 40, 40, 20. Don't grab me because I have written 100%. Can the class locate the point with which is 70 or 60% A, 30% B, and 10% C? Or let me change the question. So you can all try to mark it on your graph paper. It's not a big deal. But let me ask something. So I have this point. Okay, not this point. I have this point. What is its composition? Varun has said 20% A, that looks correct. 10% B looks correct. And 70% C looks correct. Perfect. So since you are going to write like this 20, 10, 70, let's make a formalism. Bhavna, you are very kind that you are writing. Adrija also that ABC. It's like 20, 10, 70. Clear with everyone? All of you have understood? Take a minute to convince yourself this is important. Padamshree? Shoaib? Okay. Now, let me ask a quick question. Let's move on. So even for extraction, we are going to follow this marking. A is going to be here, B is going to be here, and C is going to be here. Okay, what is the composition of this point? Shoaib, Nazir, are you there? Padamsi, are you there? Saivardhan, again, you need correction. 70, 30, 0. You are looking at a ternary system. All of you, Samira, Shomik, Bhavna, Jyotiraditya, everybody is correct. So what is the general take-home message? That any of the base is actually a two-component system, right? So now, it won't be an overstatement if I say that each of the base is like one of these points, right? One of these points in a two component system. So you had XA and T. Here T is constant. So you had one composition over here, and this line, right, whatever we had at a particular temperature actually constitutes one of the bases. Is it clear? So each of the base, so this line AB is for a system AB only, there is no C. This line AC is for a binary system where there is no B. The line BC represents a binary system comprising of B and C, and there is no A. Is it clear? Is it clear to all of you? Now a quick question. What does this blue line give? Odrija, Samira, Varun, Shoham, and everyone. So let's say this is point P1, which has a composition of 70A, 30B, 0C. My question is, what does the point, what is the physical significance Tanmay, answer to your question, when you draw this graph, PT constant. Shayan, very close, but so Tanmay, correct yourself. This is at a constant temperature. There is no variation of temperature. Shayan Maiti has almost given the correct answer, but others? Shankar, yes. Ratio of A and B remains same. Very good, but something else, something very interesting. Your answer is also correct. Shayan's answer is also correct. But collectively, we need to understand something even better. This line actually gives something very, very interesting. Suppose you have a pure mixture of A and B, and remember, we are still talking about three liquids which are fully miscible, right? Three liquids which are fully miscible. You have a mixture of A and B. Now you are slowly adding, slowly or fastly, nobody cares, slowly adding C. So what is going to happen? Slowly the composition of C is going to increase, right? However, the ratio of A and B remains same, but the overall composition is going to change. Earlier it was 70A and 30B, no C, but now there is some C. So while A and B are going to remain in the ratio 7:3, their overall proportion is going to change, isn't it? Yes or no? So this line actually gives you all the possible compositions of how the solution composition will change. This line actually gives you how the solution composition will change as you add C progressively, or as you progressively add C, probably the English would have been better. As you progressively add C, to a mixture of. Is it clear to all? Varun, is it clear? Shayan Maiti, good question. And you see what I have already done. Shankar, is it clear now? You are saying A and B ratio will remain same. Shayan, I'm coming to your question. Wait, hold on. Shankar, is it clear? Others, is it clear? Pooja, Bhavna, Devesh, Sneh, Rishi, Saivardhan. Okay, Tridipta, thanks. So everybody understands. Now Shayan has asked a question which I was about to ask. Now this graph, the way the line is drawn, apparently the line goes all the way up to pure C. Because what is the composition of this point? This point is C equal to 100. And you have joined it up to all the way up to 100. Now my question to ask is, you can always draw this line on the graph paper. There is absolutely no problem. But is it, theoretically, it is also possible to go to C equal to 100%. My question is it practically possible to reach the point C? Is the question clear to the class? Varun, is the question clear to the class? Is the question clear to you? Shankar, is the question clear to you? Adrija, is the question clear to you? Pooja, is the question clear to you? Is it possible this way, this thought experiment, if you do this thought experiment, can you actually reach the vertex C? Samira? Shankar, I have got your answer. Hold on. So when you say no, sir, and yes, sir, all of you, not practical, yes. This is actually an example. If you are now talking about a physical example, there will be, so firstly, this is a case where practically this can asymptotically tend towards 100% C, where you have, let's say, much higher amount of C as compared to the total A and B present initially. Anik, that is what I am explaining. What is the point in asking me and charging me with a question mark? That is exactly what I am explaining, right? Hold on. You guys get so excited, you start asking questions what I am about to teach. Just hold on. Very good. So this is essentially, if I take that this line tells us the composition, please remember then practically, from a practical standpoint, not from a graphical standpoint, practical standpoint, you can only asymptotically approach C. Clear to everyone? Clear, Anik? I was answering your question only. Clear to everyone? Okay, very good. Now, we revert back to this particular slide. Maybe I just copy paste it again. And I just pick up this part that I don't know how to handle everything. Okay, let me just quickly draw it over here. So this is an extraction chamber. So this is your feed. Repeatedly, I'm making a mistake today. I don't know why. This is your feed. This is your solvent. This is your extract. So what will be the extract? B plus C plus trace A. This is your raffinate. This will be A plus C plus trace B, right? And we mark A here, B here, C here. And what about the relative miscibility and immiscibility or whatever? we know that A and B are partially miscible. Yes, this much is clear to everyone. This much is clear to everyone. So, if I would like to convey this message, right? If I would like to convey this message about this partial miscibility and complete miscibility, how can I convey that message, right? Through this graph. As of now, we are talking only about binary combinations. A and B are partially miscible, right? B and C are fully miscible, A and C are fully miscible. How can I convey this message? Anybody? Okay, I would like to draw your attention to this graph or this plot. When we talked about A and B to be partially miscible, what extra thing we had? We just had, please recall this. When we said that at a particular temperature, Tanmay had a doubt, others please do not make the mistake that the triangular plot we are drawing, there the temperature is constant. The temperature does not change. So from this plot, a TX plot, to when we are looking at a triangular plot, we are just looking at one horizontal line, which means that the temperature is constant. Now, even at this plot, if you look at one horizontal line that is at a particular temperature, right, at a particular temperature, and you see that at that temperature, the system has an immiscibility region. So how do you distinguish it? Or how do you identify it? Okay, let me draw what I mean to say, and the rest of the thing will fall in place. Does this make sense to the whole class, these 2 points? Does this make sense to the whole class? Take a minute. You don't have to rush to reply yes, sir. Take a minute. AC axis remains, or AC line remains untouched. BC line remains untouched, but there are going to be 2 points on the AB line. Is it clear to all? Because of the fact that A and B are partially miscible. Is it clear? So on the line AB, now this region is the immiscible range, and this region and this region are miscible range. Of course, this is at a particular temperature. And what it means is any AB composition, see, we are on the line AB, so there is only A and B varying. And now from the graph, you can say what are the compositions. So this corresponds to, let's say, 66% A and rest B, right? No, sorry. Yeah, 66% A and rest B. This is like 80, 70, 60. This is like 54% A. This is like 42% A. Everybody agrees? And this is like 88% A, and this is like 15% A. So everybody understands what is the difference? Like this composition, 88% A is a homogeneous composition. We are on the line AB, so therefore there is no sign of C yet. There is no sign of C yet, right? So we can say that this composition is miscible. We can say this composition is miscible. And within this range, any of the composition, they are immiscible. and they will simply split up into these two compositions. Is it clear to all of you? We are not talking about the ternary system yet. We are on the line AB, and therefore, as of now, we are talking only about the binary system. Is it clear to all? So to start with, I again repeat, very lukewarm response from the class. Adrija, is it clear? So this graph, along with these two marks and nothing else, captures this physics fully. Clear? Now, what do you think is going to happen if you slowly add C? If you now slowly add C, what do you think is going to happen? Horizontal line will not shift up. Horizontal line is, I mean, I understand what you mean to say, but you have not said it in the right way. So what will happen is, you will now have, so let's say you have a composition over here, which is splitting up into A and B. Now, if you add C, it will still keep on splitting up, but now the total amount of A and B are reduced. A is also reducing, B is also reducing. Total amount of A and B are reducing if nothing else is happening, because there is some C that is coming in. Okay. So just give me a couple of minutes. Okay, let us do in a slightly different way. Let me explain what will happen. Let me just tell what will happen. You will actually see a immiscibility envelope now like this. This will be your immiscibility envelope. And what will happen? Ideally, when we talked about, so if you have doubt, just hold on for a minute or so. And ideally, when we talked about the choice of solvent, one of the necessary criteria was B should have, or C should have, in simple terms, higher solubility in B than A. That is the whole logic of extraction, right? That is the whole logic of extraction, yes or no? Ideally, you should have a solvent, right? You should have a solvent that should have a higher solubility of B. That should have, that you should have, sorry for the wrong words. I am feeling tired. Ideally, you should choose a solvent B in such a way that C has higher solubility in B as compared to A, though C is fully soluble in A. See if you are able to follow my words. This, forget about this dome because we have not explained it. This you understand? This dome as of now is an imposed stuff. So we are in the recall mode. Just a second. I think we will be able to finish it today nicely. Okay. Let's do the same thought experiment again. Okay. So let's say we have the initial composition of A and B, and now we are adding C to it, right? Now, one of the necessary criteria for extraction to happen, the solute C is in A, where it likes it. It likes A reasonably, right? Therefore, it remains dissolved. Now, you are introducing a solvent B. What is the necessary criteria for successful extraction? C should like B more. C should actually like B more, right? So that C should leave A and go to B. Therefore, in terms of solubility, it is logical to assume that C will have higher solubility in B as compared to A. Yes or no? This statement is clear to all. C should have, in simple terms, forget about that relative, separation factor or whatever we talked. Forget about all those big terminologies, the selectivity and all. In simple terms, right? C should have higher solubility in B as compared to A. Is it clear? That everybody agrees? Okay. So now you see that instead of the previous example where everything was miscible, so therefore you added C and nothing happened, here you are adding C to a composition which are immiscible, which are initially immiscible. So this point is now only a physical point. It's a point on the graph paper. Actually, it does not exist, right? The compositions are here and here. Now you are adding C. So you are somewhere over here. You are still way deep in the immiscibility envelope, right? So still you are going to have a B-rich phase and an A-rich phase. So even here, when there was no C, we had actually A-rich phase. Let's say this is point P1 and this is point P2. So the A-rich phase is given by point P1 and B-rich phase is given by point P2. This everybody understands. Now we have added C, right? And C finds, oh God, A and B, they are divided in two phases, but I have preference, I have affinity for both, but I have more affinity for B. So now, can anybody suggest what is going to happen to the point D2? Still, they are within the immiscibility envelope. Why it is within the immiscibility envelope, you will soon understand. What do you think will happen at point D2? So what is the difference between D1 and D2? Initial composition was D1. Overall composition, D1 physically does not exist anywhere. And now you have added some C into that. And the total composition has got to point D2. Is this clear to everyone? And now, what do you expect will happen at D2? D2, at point D2, again, there will be two phases. One is a B-rich phase and one is a C-rich phase, right? Let's say the points are now P11 and P22. So at D2, we will still have an A-rich phase and a B-rich phase, right? However, the fraction of C in P22 should be higher than that in P11. Everybody agrees to this? The fraction of C should be higher in P22 as compared to P11. This is the last thing I'm going to cover because we are 9:55 already. These people have understood, and people who have not understood, kindly raise your objection. You have a class after this. More importantly, I have a class. This is the crux of the whole problem. If necessary, I will give some time in the next class also. But if any one of you can understand why the fraction of C or XC will be higher in XC in P22 will be higher than XC in P11. Is it making sense to anyone? Varun, Rishi Yaravar, Sneh, Shankar, anyone to buy this logic? And I appreciate when the class is silent because the class understands. Shayan Maiti, very good. Yeah. Soham, so what is the logic? B is more C, yes sir, because C is more miscible in B. So now when you add C to a mixture of A and B, it partitions. It satisfies both, but it goes more to the B and less to the C. So now you have a B-rich phase and A-rich phase, both of which are in equilibrium, but XC in P22 is going to be higher as compared to XC in P21, and therefore this is a tie line. The tie line, Anik Mondal, you just have to wait for probably the next Monday. The tie line, why don't you, how are the points? Points P11 and P22 are not chosen, Udrija. You go to point D and then they determine, the points automatically get determined. How do they get determined? So you have an initial composition of P1 and P2, right? And now, as I was telling or emphasizing, C splits up. So the amount of C, the total C that you have added, part of it goes to phase P2, part of it goes to phase P1, and we understand more C goes to phase P2 as compared to phase P1. Just follow my words. More C goes to phase P2 as compared to phase P1, right? So now you have an overall composition of point P1 and point P2, both of which now has A, B, and C. Is it clear? No, the line will not be horizontal. If the, yeah, Shomik, you have got it correctly. Had the solubility of C been same in A and B, the line would have remained horizontal. Perfect. Right? But it is 9:58 and therefore I hate to stop a class like this, but I have to stop. All your doubts, you are welcome to carry the doubts till next Monday, or you can message me with your doubts. I don't have any problem. So all of the class, please take attention of Shomik's comment, very nice comment. Theoretically, of course, you would have been a complete failure as a chemical engineer because you would never been able to extract Shomik. But yeah, so that's a nice way of looking into it. The line would have remained horizontal had C had the same solubility in A and B. Roughly, it is yes. So others, Onik, Odrija, I think both of you have the same question. I will take it up in the next class. Thank you very much. I have to stop now. We'll pick up from here. Kindly come prepared and with your